In the ash tree nest is a female tawny owl incubating 2 precious eggs. The eggs will hatch soon, but it hasn't been an easy process for these owls. They've battled against competition, unwanted visitors, and some of the toughest weather the Yorkshire Wolds has to offer. The story begins in January when I start work on a new nest site. I start with a natural tree cavity, which I know they've nested in before. To return the nest to its former glory, I cover most of the front to make a natural hollow and leave a beautiful entrance hole at the top. I fit the nest with cameras and the new spot is now complete. It's time to wait to see who will arrive. At the end of February, the male tawny owl is the first visitor. He hops to the entrance to take a closer look. Just listen to those beautiful ocarina calls. This is the male calling for his mate. And if you listen closely, you can hear her calling back. And a few days later, I get my first glimpse of the female. She comes in to take a look for herself. She seems impressed and even jumps in to take a look around. It's so exciting to get these first views of the tawny owls looking at this nest. The female even begins to nest scrape, which is a promising sign she's going to lay her eggs here. She makes her way out of the nest, which isn't an easy task. The entrance hole is 1 metre up. Tawny owl chicks are adventurous and often fledge too soon, so this should stop them fledging too early. And with all this interest, I'm hopeful they're going to lay there soon. But after all this excitement, the tawny owls disappear for a few days. I wonder if they've nested elsewhere. Soon I track down the tawny owls and find them in this tree with 3 eggs. Just 150 metres away from the nest that I built, and with the other site vacant, there's a lot of interested visitors. A young male kestrel on the hunt for a perfect nest to attract a female. An inquisitive squirrel, this hollow would make the perfect place to build a dray. A pair of jackdaws braving the weather to explore. And at night I even spot a barn owl taking a peek. But in early April, disaster strikes for these tawny owls. I return to the nest to find out the base has been chewed out by a squirrel. Their eggs are destroyed. Tawny owls only usually have 1 brood a year, so I'm not expecting them to try again. But soon afterwards I spot the male back at the nest that I built. And as night falls, he calls in the female once again. And soon she's back and jumps inside. Despite having had a failed clutch, the female is showing all the signs of preparing to lay again. While the female explores inside the nest, the male hears an intruding tawny owl in the distance. He starts calling and posturing to defend this site, which is a great sign that they actually want this nest. After this, the tawny owls are spending more and more time here, using my nearby pond for a drink, and returning to the nest around the clock. One afternoon, after nearly a month defending the site, the female enters with purpose. Reforms her nest scrape and settles in for the night. And a few hours later, she stands to reveal her first egg. This is absolutely incredible. Against all the odds, the tawny owl has laid again. And look how bold she is on her front. This is her brood patch, which helps keep the egg warm with her body heat. She hops to the entrance and looks down at her egg. Watch as she carefully balances as she plans her entrance. Not the most elegant landing, but no harm done. The next day, the female rests while she's incubating the egg. But she hears a noise outside. It's a squirrel wanting a look inside the nest. The tawny owl eyes up the intruder, ready to defend her egg. But the squirrel isn't keen to fight. Soon, the female calls for her mate. Producing an egg is tiring work and she needs food. The male is quick to answer her call. Just listen to these beautiful moments with the pair calling to each other. He's keen to see if there's an egg, but she persistently calls for food. He gets the message and heads out to hunt. And she sits in the entrance to wait. And is quickly back with a mouthful for his mate. It's just incredible to capture these intimate interactions between the pair. But the female needs more than just a mouthful. A rat down at the pond would make a good meal. And the female has a keen eye. An adult rat can just about outmaneuver a tawny owl. But the young rats aren't so lucky. She puts it to one side. This is known as caching food. And then settles in for the night with a rat beside her. And in the morning I get my first glimpse of her second egg. She's now been incubating for almost a month, so these eggs are ready to hatch any day now. I've been amazed at the resilience of this pair of tawny owls, producing a second clutch against all the odds. With chicks expected any day now, I can't wait to see how they rise to this next challenge. It's the end of May and Bonnie has been incubating her 2 eggs for a month. And the first is just about ready to hatch. She stands up to reveal the first chick. It's blind, helpless and still damp from hatching. Bonnie soon returns to her chick. She's such a caring mother. That night, she's on guard, hyper alert to any threats. And she hears a noise. A barn owl lands just outside the nest. But thankfully, it's just passing through. Bonnie's determined to keep her chick safe. Tawny owl mothers are extremely protective of their young, so the next day I don't get much more than a glimpse of the hatchling. But as night falls, it's plain to see just how quickly this chick is growing. It's dried off now, showing off its fluffy down, and it's already very active, wiggling around and stretching its tiny wings. All this growing must be tiring work. The following night, Bonnie reveals a second chick. It's hatched out 3 days after the first. Bonnie seems so pleased the chicks are healthy. But she's finding it hard to sleep with these restless hatchlings beneath her. I watch her carefully feed the chicks, giving them tiny morsels one bit at a time. Later, Bonnie leaves the nest to stretch her wings. But it's not her that's first back to the nest. It's her mate, Ozzy, who sees their chicks for the very first time. He instinctively moves towards them. The chicks need constant brooding to keep them warm. They won't be able to regulate their own temperature for at least a week. So Ozzy has a go at brooding. This is absolutely fascinating. I've never heard of male tawny owls brooding their chicks. This could be the first time this behaviour has been recorded. The female returns soon afterwards to find her partner in the nest. She pushes her mate off the chicks. This is supposed to be her job. Now Bonnie's back home, Ozzy heads out to hunt. And he's soon back with a rat. She calls for more food. He remembers a mouse that is left by the entrance. This food store should keep them going for a while. One afternoon, Bonnie heads to the entrance to take a look outside. Tawny owls are nocturnal, so seeing her in the afternoon light is a rare treat. And it's great to get a daylight view of the chicks too. They're only a few days old, but they're already developing fast, starting to sit upright and trying to hold their heads up. I can even make out the faint outline of the facial disc. And with the chicks continuing to grow, Bonnie can take a bit more time away. Early the next morning, I spot her visiting this nearby pond for a dip. Keeping clean for birds is really important to maintain their plumage, loosening dirt and making feathers easier to clean. And after all the time Bonnie spent up in the nest, she deserves a good bath. But when she comes back, I notice she hasn't brought any food. It's been a tough year with a late spring, so prey items have been really hard to come by. Ozzy hasn't been back to the nest for a few days, and the chicks just aren't getting enough food. And if the chicks don't eat, they just won't survive. I'm getting worried, so I decide to intervene. I put some food into the nest each day to give them a helping hand. And now the chicks seem to be thriving again. I can see the chicks' plumage is starting to develop. Beneath their fluffy white down, their darker feathers are beginning to grow. And as they get bigger and become more mobile, Bonnie's struggling to brood them, and she just can't keep them underneath her. And the older chick can even swallow its meals whole. The chicks are developing fast, but Bonnie still keeps a close eye on them. And at this age, they no longer need constant brooding to keep warm. Soon, the older chick's eyes begin to open. And shortly after, the younger chick's eyes have opened too. Now at just over 2 weeks, the chicks are practicing standing up on their feet and even begin to stretch their wings. The owlets now have occasional visits from the parents. The male owl Ozzy brings in some exotic meals, including this young redstart. And Bonnie comes in to check on her youngsters. But they spend most of their days alone and seem to be forming a close bond and becoming more playful and more active and a bit mischievous too. It's such a pleasure watching these young chicks develop their own personalities. Bonnie is such a caring mother, and with a little help from me, these chicks are well on the way to fledging. So today's ringing day for the tawny owl chicks. They're just less than a month old, so I'm heading up that tree to get them down. I've already checked to see if the parents are not in the nest, but I still need to wear protective headgear just in case they're nearby. The parents can be fiercely territorial. Right, I'm just going to get the chicks out now. One at a time. It's a big reach. There you go. Right, so we've got both chicks in here. So this is Jean. She's going to ring the chicks with us today. They're looking fabulous, really healthy. So we're going to ring them and then weigh them. So we're going to start with this little noisy one. This one's Sage. There you are, Jean. There's the first one. They feel good. They feel good weight.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Look at that.
Oh,
Clack, clack.
Oh, then mister.
So they're both 4 weeks old, which is a good time to ring them because their legs are well grown and these rings will fit them now for the rest of their life. Right, so we'll give this one away, shall we?
Yep.
There we go.
$4.20.
$4.20, so that's minus the bag, so it's $3.75, I think, that one. Right, who's next? This one must be Bramble.
But the BTO rung, so this is a British Trust for Ornithology ring. And this ring's specific, this size and this number is specific to this bird. So these are G rings, most owls are Gs. Lots of birds of prey are Gs, that's the size. But the actual ring number is specific to this bird. So if it turns up anywhere again, we'll know where it was born, how old it is, and how it's fared really.
Right, give that one away then, Jean. Is that a smaller one, do you think, this one?
It looked it, but once you got it out at bag, it didn't, they looked fairly similar, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh.
$4.50.
$4.50, so that one's heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how much is that one then, Jean?
$4.05 then, that one.
$4.05, that's great. So just looking at the development on the feathers, this chick, which is the lighter chick, the first one we rang, is actually more developed in its feathers and the tail feathers and wing feathers when you get them together. So this is the heavier chick, but this is actually the youngest chick as well. So maybe we've got a female and a male maybe, or one's just literally eating more. But it's good to see they're both a good weight, even though the male's not doing very well with bringing food. That seems to be my job nowadays. But they're looking great, so we're going to get them back into the nest. Right, I'll get them back up there now. carefully does it. And there's number 2. There you go. So that's the job done, and they'll be fledging in the next week or 2, so we'll be keeping a close eye on them. Tawny owl chicks, Sage and Bramble, are growing fast. And over the last month, they've grown from tiny hatchlings to mischievous young owls. But they've had a tough time growing up because male owl Ozzy hasn't brought in enough food. The chicks are getting desperately hungry, even pulling at Bonnie's feathers. But with me providing regular food deliveries, they're now at 3 weeks old and looking great. It's amazing how tall they are when they stretch. These long legs come into their own when it's time for them to hunt. And I can see their flight feathers are developing well too. They spend the next week stretching their wings and eating as much food as possible. With help from Bonnie and from me. By the end of June, the chicks are 4 weeks old and have a really strong bond. Soon they will be ready to fledge. The following day, the eldest chick, Sage, scrambles onto Bramble's head, keen to get its first view of the outside world. It spends most of the day up there, and Bramble is left all alone. But feeling like it's missing out, Bramble claws its way up to join Sage, using its wings to help it. For the next 2 days, most of their time is spent in the entrance. But soon, the eldest chick is ready to take the leap. Just like that, the first chick is out in the wild. It doesn't go far, jumping to the branch just outside the nest. Sage is unlikely to return to the nest. Now it's entered what is known as the branching phase, which is when the fledgling moves around the area, jumping from branch to branch. The first tawny owl chick fledged last night, and I've just spotted it up here in the tree. It hasn't made it very far. It's just 6 meters away from the nest. It's great to see it out amongst the trees. Bramble's not used to being alone in the nest. It's looking slightly deflated. With nothing else to do, Bramble takes a nap. Refreshed from its sleep, the owlet wakes and climbs to the entrance with purpose. Before hopping out of the nest and across to the nearby branch. There's so much to explore. I've come to Ash Wood to see if I can get a glimpse of both chicks out in the trees. So that's absolutely great. I've spotted the second chick right at the top of a larch tree. Absolutely great to see it so high. The adults are never far away. Ozzy's standing guard right over the chick, higher up in the ash tree. By day, both chicks rest up in the trees. And they are still finding their feet. I've set this feeding branch up quite close to the nest, and this will really help them out at the moment. They won't be able to hunt for themselves for a while, and this extra little food will make sure they make it through into the autumn. As night draws in, I'm watching closely for tawny owls on the cameras. Male owl Ozzy has come to the feeding branch for a bite, and he seems to notice something coming. It's one of the chicks. It looks really healthy and strong, which is great to see. But the owlet's still relying on Bonnie to feed it. The next evening, the chick has found its way back on its own. But it's in danger. A buzzard swoops in to attack. But the owlet stands its ground, fanning its wings, which luckily puts the buzzard off. That was a close call. The owlets have become regular visitors to the feeding branch. Here's one of the chicks with Bonnie. The second chick turns up. And both start to feed by themselves, which is a great sign. And they continue to feed here, whatever the weather. Ashwood is such a great place for these young owls to grow up, and they're already exploring the pond here. Look at this one head bobbing. Tawny owls do this because their eyes are fixed in place. It's how they gauge the distance and position of objects around them. But these two still have a lot to learn. It's great Bonnie's still around to show them how to hunt. And they don't have long, as by autumn these chicks will be heading off to find their own territories. They've come a long way over the past few months. This being Bonnie and Ozzy's second clutch this year, the odds were stacked against them. But with a helping hand from me, it's amazing to see both owlets fledge and set off for lives of their own. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to see more. Here's a taste of what you'll enjoy seeing on this channel.